those people pass their genes along. So now we have inherited that, and so now we're stuck with this intense, jealous trigger that may or may not be some profound emotional, spiritual, relational thing. It's just an evolutionary vestige of our ancestors who passed it on to us. And like the people I want to mate with, they better not fucking mate with anyone else or I'll kill, you know?
Yeah. It does come down to I'll smash their face and then I'll kill and I'll ostracize that.
And the fact that I don't do that with my friends kind of is an argument in favor of this evolutionary theory, because I could do the same emotional attachment with a friend, kind of like you're saying the 13-year-olds do.
Yeah.
But by the time you become an adult, you don't do that anymore for the most part.
Yeah.
But most people have a violent reaction to the jealousy thing that suggests it's maybe just an evolutionary thing. And if that's the case, can we evolve out of that? I don't know. Can we change that DNA? I don't know. Can that happen?
We now bring you Enter the Freud.
There's a lot of difficulties with open relationships. And most people think about jealousy and comparing and stuff like that within the relationship. But my basic problem with this concept is to truly attune to more than one person, right? That would take I was going to say exaggerated, but it would take a very large and or mature level of emotional intelligence. Okay? Because it's not just attuning to one person. You then have to attune and literally understand their feelings and respond and respect them. Not only in relationship to you, but then in relationship to the other. As you make time and adjust and you are either seen with them or not, or however you figure it out, right? Well, my argument is that most people can't even do that with one person.
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes on, when you look at like Gen Z, millennials, us, Gen X, right? You just look at each group and you're like, it doesn't look good, guys. The interest in Gen Z is highest, right? They're at like 59% interest, but their ability to execute it is below 10%, right?
59% of people are interested in open relationships?
Yeah, they like the concept, but only 9 have actually tried it. But that's because those guys just basically are scared of relationships, and I don't know what they're doing, right?
No, dude.
Like their percentages of their ability to hook up, just like be involved it's challenged.
Yes.
Right? But so that's my argument is that I actually think people who are interested in it have a low emotional intelligence. Therefore, their ability to execute on this is like tiny. That's why I see it as entirely a failed concept.
And maybe is part of your argument, this isn't what you're saying, but it maybe would naturally follow, is that people who suck at attuning to other people, since they suck so much, they kind of want to, they're not capable of getting close with one person, so they kind of want to keep it diluted amongst lots of people.
That is my, thank you. You actually helped me formulate my argument better. Yeah, that's how it acts out, right?
Yeah. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but I'll kind of do the devil's advocate. I'll take the pro-open relationship stance.
Sure.
One argument I've heard that I think it's a good, interesting argument to consider is that the only reason humans do monogamy is because of jealousy, and that jealousy is a really powerful and kind of primitive, it's like a powerful, primitive, selfish emotion or experience. And I've heard people argue it this way, is they say, well, what if someone said you can only have one friend? Because if I was like, Porn, you and I are friends, you can't have any other friends. Because if you have other friends, that makes me jealous. So you're my only friend, I'll be your only friend, and that way neither of us will be jealous, and then we'll both be happy.
Yep.
You know, that's absurd, obviously, to us, but like, why is that any more absurd than in a romantic relationship? You know, in theory, it's the exact same, but the difference is jealousy. For some reason, with friends, we don't really get jealous, but with romantic relationships, we get violently psycho-jealous.
Yeah.
And then in terms of evolutionary psychology, the reason we get jealous is just because of like mate guarding has become this evolutionary thing. Because like if I got psycho-jealous and guarded my mate, that was good for me to pass down my genes. Whereas if I let all the other dudes fuck my lady, my genes, you know, don't have as good of a chance. So the argument is sort of like, because of this primitive evolutionary mate guarding selfish jealousy thing, we're going to construct relationships around taking care of jealousy, but that's stupid. Just like we wouldn't want to only have one friend.
Yeah.
And so having only one romantic relationship is like needlessly limiting, just in the same way that having only one friend would be needlessly limiting.
Shit, that was a really good counter argument. That was excellent.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it from, there's the evolutionary psychology perspective, which makes it sound very simple.
Yes.
And I think it's valuable, but much more interesting and much less simple is a more depth psychology perspective. And let me start with that. The idea there is that we, like our primitive, like our little kid or our primitive deep needs attach to people.
Yeah.
And the idea is that like babies or infants attach to their caregiver in this super important attachment way of like, my survival depends on like an emotional attachment to my caregiver.
Yeah.
And then as that baby grows up, eventually around adolescence, they detach from the caregiver because you're not supposed to still be attached to mom when you're 16 anymore. And so you detach, and then the fucked up middle schoolers and high schoolers are because they've detached from their parents, but now they don't have a new primary attachment. And then eventually they meet a new romantic boyfriend or girlfriend and they attach to that person.
Yeah.
And that attachment is it's really powerful. It's like survival. It's like, this person loves me.
Yes.
It's such a powerful thing. And that's, for some reason, that has this jealousy thing to it. It's because like, I want to attach to you, I want you to attach to me, and it's just you and me, baby. It's you and me against the world.
Yes.
And so that primitive survival attachment thing we do is a jealous, exclusive thing.
Right.
And then if you break up, if your girlfriend cheats on you, it rips that survival fucking umbilical cord out of you, and that's this can't eat, can't sleep thing, is because you like feel like you're not going to survive.
Yes. But that's why I feel like the word jealousy it hardly describes the truth of the experience. Hardly. I mean, it's just like, it's too simple of a phrase. I just thought of another situation where the word describing it is totally inadequate. Because, as you point out, the person who has this attachment ripped away from them, it's like, first you were being fed. You were being fed the nutrients that are super important for your romantic emotional self.
Yeah.
That self needs to be fed, and it is being fed by this attachment. You have it, and even if you're doing it undercover, no one knows, right? It's clandestine operation. Like you're secretly getting the nutrients of acknowledgement that you are desirable, that someone like, what are the things that you get? Do you?
I think that it's it's like I feel lovable as a human and thus worthy as a human. And so I'm going to be loved and I'm going to get to have connection. It seems like that's kind of at the heart of it.
Yeah, I guess that is definitely at the heart. And then I think there's just layers upon layers of what a human being is receiving from this fantastic experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then when it is ripped away, as you say, then that person experiences layers upon layers of disturbance.
Yeah.
And that disturbance is not often talked about and or understood. And so then when you say like, oh, we're going to be in this open relationship and we're going to communicate about it. And I'm like, really? Because people can't even communicate about it in a single breakup.
Yeah.
People struggle to, and I think that just like the idea of communication fatigue would be the absolute result of people who struggle to make connection with one person and then just try to be like, well, then I'll just have 3 girlfriends. Or
totally.
I had this roommate I need to get in touch with, man. Like, I have to get in touch with him. In college, he had 7 girlfriends, 1 for each day of the week. And at the time, I just thought, what are you doing? It seemed so crazy. And I was just like, it was really funny. He was actually my roommate and one of my best friends, right? And so he had this girlfriend that would come and stay with him. She was the number 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my girlfriend would come and stay. And so we kind of had this thing we would play out on 1 day a week. And then on the other days, and I didn't find this out till later, until the main girl found out, and then she bailed, and then he just fell apart into pieces. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I can see a good summary of the pro versus con. Okay, so I'm going to start with your side, which is the con. We were describing how the romantic relationships, you said they like nourish each other, they feed each other, and they're feeding each other love and connection and intimate needs met. And basically you're saying is this mutual feeding of each other is so important, and the stuff they're feeding each other is so important, and most people aren't really very good at doing it with one person.
Yep.
So you just got to really focus on getting good at this feeding and being fed with one person. You got to like get really good at that so that this crucial nourishment is actually happening well. If you start bringing other people in, it's just like the feeding is going to be a clusterfuck and no one's going to get fed properly. That's your argument.
That is thank you.
All right. The counter argument is that maybe we shouldn't be depending on one person to feed us because people suck at feeding.
Yeah.
And thus depending like in this super intense, jealous life and death way. I need you to feed me. I need you to feed me. I can't have you go try to feed anyone else because I'm barely getting enough, so just feed me. Maybe that model's not good.
Yes.
And then the argument would be maybe we're too desperate to have other people feed us this shit. And maybe we need to chill out. And when the little kid detaches from the mom when they're in their teenage years, maybe they just need to learn to like operate in the world without finding a new fucking umbilical cord to feed them.
Whoa. That was well said, because now, like, I came in here all charged up and I'm literally like, uh-oh, I don't know anymore. I actually really agree with the second one. Here's my problem with your counter argument is like it somewhat then goes to this place that a lot of people are in right now, and I think it's the Gen Z crew that they're staying single because they believe that they need to focus on their careers and that other people actually distract them from whatever they're trying to do. Someone like Kierkegaard, who I think you were the one who described he never got married because he needed to really feel the world. These people are doing a junior level of that, where they're not getting involved because, but once again, I don't buy it. I think they're not getting involved because they're too afraid and they suck at actually, because when you sign up to have this romantic deal where you validate me and I will in turn validate you with my time, with my focus, with my honest attention to you, and I will give this to you, and then when you give it to me in return, we feel like the world works and has a purpose, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I know that like we're supposed to not depend on that. And you're supposed to be able to self-soothe and be like okay on your own. Like the truth is, I'm okay spending time by myself. Like, you know what? When I was in college, I was walking to class one day, and I realized it was the first time in my life that I was by myself. Like, imagine this, and I'll have to backtrack tiny bit just to explain this. In my life, I grew up in a cult, and then I went to a boarding school, and then I went to another boarding school, and then by the time I got to college, I realized I was always with someone else, a friend, just people, friends. I was never by myself.
Yep.
And it was like, there I was walking to a class and I was like, whoa, I'm literally soloing this.
Yep.
But there I was in college, man. I was probably like 20 years old. That's fucked.
And was it good? Was it bad? What was it like?
Oh, it was just fine. It was kind of just like, whoa, look at this. And I kind of just started to see, I looked around a lot more. Like, whoa, look at all these people. I started to say what's up to people I saw over and over.
Yeah. That makes me think of one interesting argument or perspective on the monogamy or open relationship debate is that humans, for the vast majority of human existence, we evolved in tribes. And one theory is that our attachment was just to the tribe. And when we were in that, there was much more polyamory because we weren't so fixated on one person to feed us.
Oh.
Whereas nowadays, something in modern history, we've gotten more individualistic and we're not in a tribe anymore. So we really need one person to feed us now.
Yeah. You know, when you act this out and you say these words of like I need this person, you like when you make these gestures, it scares me, dude. I'm like, oh fuck, I have felt that way, and it is not a good feeling, because that person has to go on their own life's journey, and it may not be going the same way as you. And actually, that's happened to me multiple times, right?
Yep.
Where I really I fell in love with someone, and then I realized, oh shit, we're going to different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, uh-oh. And so then comes that experience.
Yeah, and so some people could argue that this one-on-one soulmate attached until death do us part thing is not a good model to be following.
But how would we move towards that? It looks like we are headed towards this, the world that you are describing. A world where we don't rely on one person to be your romantic connection.
Yeah.
Right?
I saw this brief documentary on dating and relationships and sex in Sweden, and they are much farther along on this trajectory. Both the men and the women are kind of skeptical of marriage. In America, we assume that the woman is always wanting to get married.
Yeah.
And in Sweden, It doesn't seem like either of them are wanting to get married. The marriage rate is way lower. The dating is, both people are way more hands off. It's a whole different thing. Like, people were like, a first date, going to dinner, I would never want to go to dinner on a first date. I just want to like briefly show up and have drinks, and if the person's cool, I just want to get drunk and hook up, and then like maybe never see them again. And like, everyone was saying that. It really, Sweden felt like it was much further along on this trajectory you're talking about. I was shocked. And then the part of the documentary was examining how lonely everyone is. And they all admitted that they're all lonely as fuck.
Oh, really?
It's like super individualistic, and they're all really commitment phobic, and they're all really lonely.
What the fuck? That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Look, I see that I see that people have succeeded going in this direction, but like, to break out of this thing that you and I have experienced, because we're Gen X, man. We are the fucking oldest kids on the block, right? Like, we literally did this thing where you would get a girlfriend and then publicly go around with your girlfriend.
Totally.
And then, like, when you were young, if you had a girlfriend starting very young, like, and you never even did anything with them, maybe you kissed them or something, right? It was like, ooh,
maybe,
ooh, you got this girlfriend, and you're just like practicing this attachment thing. But at that point, all it is the person is agreeing that you are of some kind of importance, and like, I find you acceptable enough that I give you this title. And then you say,
totally.
And you say, aha, I will receive this title. I was watching my son's friend, and there's this chick in his school that she considers herself to have mad game, because she like targets dudes, and she like spends all of her energy trying to get them to go out with her, right? Like, oh, FaceTime me, oh, blah, blah, blah. I forget her name. We were making fun of her the whole time we were skiing. But then as soon as you go out with her, she dumps you the next day. And my son's friend got caught by her. He did it.
Oh.
And it was like, when she was trying to get him, everybody was like, dude, do you know what she does? You know what she does? And he was like, yeah, fuck it up. I'm not susceptible to that. And a week later, boom, he's like, oh, I guess we're She just somehow cranks the screws on these little boys and gets them to agree, and then dumps them. And then the funniest thing is, she thinks this is like a woman who has game. And I tried to explain to these young bucks, I was like, listen, dude, women have titties. They don't need game. Okay? Like, straight up, everyone's going to go try to hang out with them because of their attributes. You are the one who must possess the game. Okay?
Yes.
I try to educate these guys, but maybe I was giving them misguided attention, right? Or directions. Like, maybe I should have said something like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool. She's got game, and you got to go out with her. Like, how cool is that? Woo!"
Well, and it kind of fits with this Swedish thing, because you should watch this documentary. It's kind of mind-blowing. The women do most of the hitting on the guys in Sweden.
Whoa. Let's go there,
maybe
dude.
In Sweden, women need the game.
I'm going to Sweden. I must observe this. I must observe this.